In this lecture, we'll talk about overview of KDD. So this is just an introduction to the knowledge discovery databases. We will talk about what is the knowledge discovery databases and why we're spending our time on that. The knowledge discovery databases process, what is it applied to, so what are the applications, and some data mining methods, and finally the challenges for knowledge discovery databases. So, knowledge discovery is the automatic extraction of non-obvious hidden knowledge from large volumes of data. So I'm going to write it down as definition of KDD. Is the automatic extraction of non-obvious hidden knowledge from large volumes of data. So why is automatic? Because as we can see here, it's a lot of data. So we have collected very large volumes of data where it's not feasible anymore for a human to go through this data and make any sense of it. So we need some way of automating the discovery of patterns or knowledge from that data. Next we have some sort of a data mining algorithm that will do the processing in these huge volumes of data. So that's why it's automatic, and it will extract hidden knowledge or some sort of knowledge that we did not know before. That's why we say it's hidden, because that's a novel or interesting knowledge that we were not aware of. So this is our goal. Also, it's our goal to discover knowledge which is useful, that we can actually do something with it to our advantage. So, algorithm will go through the data and hopefully discover useful, interesting knowledge from these very large volumes of data. So what is the difference between data, information, and knowledge? We can think of this as a pyramid. You have probably seen this pyramid before. What happens is that the data is on the bottom of the pyramid because this is the largest portion of the pyramid. And then, as we move up to information, it becomes smaller, and the knowledge is on the very top. And it is very small here. So what this is saying is that we have large volumes of data, and the more processing we do to it, in the more useful patterns we extract, we reduce the volume, and the actual knowledge that we need is much smaller in volume compared to the actual data. So data we see is a string of bits or numbers and symbols or some sort of objects that we are collecting on everyday basis. So most organizations today are collecting huge amounts of data because of what we just said. We said they are looking for some hidden knowledge, previously unknown patterns and trends in the data that can hopefully be useful to them to their advantage. Whether that is depending on the domain. We said we're going to apply the data mining to a specific domain. I said you could choose from medical data, financial data, educational data, music, movies, anything. So depending on the domain, the discovered knowledge should be useful. So for example, if it's in medical domain and we're trying to cure some patients that have cancer, then hopefully we will discover some sort of knowledge that allows us to cure the cancer or the diabetes or the heart disease or whatever the disease is. If it's in financial domain, then it will be what can we do to increase our profits? We are banks, we want to make money, so we're collecting all this data hoping that we will find these hidden patterns and trends that will help us to achieve our goals. For banks, that could be making profits. For medical institutions, that could be curing the patients. For video recommendation system, that could be which videos are related to which videos that the customer would be interested in renting next or viewing next. So that will help us to achieve our goals. So these organizations are collecting huge amounts of data every day. The data itself, if you look at it, it doesn't make any sense. It's just a bunch of numbers and strings and that don't look like a human can make any sense of. Once you start processing these things, the data is stripped of redundancy, reduced to the minimum necessary to characterize the data. So in information, we have done some processing where we have removed unnecessary data, cleaned it up so we can actually go through it and make any sense of it. And the knowledge is the discovered patterns or trends that could hopefully help us to achieve our goals or do some actions to our advantage. So the knowledge is integrated information including facts and relations that have been perceived, discovered, or learned. So the knowledge itself can be considered as data at high level of abstraction and generalization as well. What do we mean by that? High level of abstraction and generalization. So let's think about Walmart, for example. Walmart is a huge retailer company. It is selling a lot of products. And they have stores all over the continent. And so they're creating these huge databases, recording every single transaction that every person ever bought anything there is recorded in the database. And now, what? And now we have these databases from different stores all over the country, and let's say some high-level manager wants to know what were the sales for the Southeast. Then we need to do some sort of generalization of every little single transaction in every single store and bring it to a higher level. So we want to combine them together, and let's say if we think about the address of where the store is located. It has a street, a zip number, a zip code, a city, and so on. So instead of going to the street level, we can bring it up and combine it to a zip code or to a city or to a geographical areas like the Southeast. That will be a generalization of the data. We're making it more general, less specific. Less specific means more general. So we remove the specific things like the street number. We care about the Southeast. We don't care about the specific street numbers anymore. So if we did something like that, it will be considered knowledge as well. So let's look at this. This is the raw data kind of medical data. Some patients came to the hospital and particular medical exams were done to these patients and recorded in a database. So let's say 10M0101000, subacute, empty field, 6,000, abnormal, so on and so forth, and then it says virus. And then the next patient. The same medical exams were performed. This is the data that was received from these exams. It says bacteria, virus. So what we see here, virus or bacteria, this is pretty much the diagnosis or the class for that patient. So the first patient had a virus, the second one had a bacteria, and the third one had a bacteria. But if we just look at this, it just looks like a bunch of numbers that don't make any sense to us right now, because this is the raw data. So if we start doing some processing, some data mining on that, as I mentioned earlier, most of the data mining will be in the form of rules. The results of the data mining will be in the form of rules. So we could extract some sort of a rule from this data to tell us, to give us some knowledge about these patients. For example, we're trying to understand what makes this patient to have a virus, or to not have a virus, or to have a bacteria instead of a virus. So we can learn some kind of description what makes the patient have a virus by running through many of these records and create a rule. For all the records that we